Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we try to figure out what Crackle is. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with ya. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including the return of E3, but not really. And then on Thursday, we're going to be celebrating our 433rd episode with an entire episode of 433s suggested by you. But in the meantime, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. My husband and I, we have been watching a lot of The Amazing Race on Hulu.
Yes.
Like we've been watching old seasons, and we just got to a season where, normally it is teams of people with existing relationships. But for whatever reason, this season they're like, no, we're doing half of people that are existing relationships, and then half of people that, like, not only are they meeting for the first time, but the framing device for this is that, like, it's like a blind date. So the idea is, like, Phil is who's the host, is constantly like, are you guys do you think there are sparks here? And it's so immensely stupid, but it's so enjoyable because it's like we've watched, I don't know, 15 other seasons of like the normal formula, and so it's like
you're jaded now.
so
that
so it's like,
you anymore.
okay, like this is stupid, but in a immensely enjoyable way. At least one episode in, where you're like, wow, like this is a failed experiment, and they obviously will never do it again. But it's enjoyable to watch the failure happen.
Wow, a blind date Amazing Race. They, I assume, know that they're going to like be on the Amazing Race, like, right? They're not like, okay,
yeah, exactly. So that part is not a surprise to them.
Right. Man, being on any reality TV show of any kind, like already a nightmare, right? But if you were to be on an Amazing Race, but like entering as a solo entrant, I don't know, man. You have to trust one person that you don't know a lot.
And not just that, but then you're also like, okay, who are the producers of this reality show going to pick as my partner? Someone who they think I will genuinely be compatible with, or somebody who's going to make good TV?
Right. Well, speaking of making good TV, I mentioned before that on Thursday we are doing a whole episode of 433s. That means that we talk about something not at all Nintendo related for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. We have a bunch of suggestions from you. Thank you so much to everyone who has already written in with suggestions. Thank you to Brian and Matt and Connor and Alana, who are just the people who have suggested since the last time we asked on Thursday. But you still have the rest of today to email us your suggestions for 433 topics. So by the end of Tuesday, the end of the day on Tuesday, you can email those to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And we probably have, we definitely have too many suggestions already. But I think it's going to be a fun, wash, a fun, as we go to pick them out, it's going to be overwhelming, and we're going to get some great topics. And it's going to be a very good time. Mark, are you excited for this one?
I am excited. Patrick compiled all of everything into a document over the weekend, and so I was reading through it today, and I'm really excited for this episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
And also, let that not confuse you into thinking that we're preparing for this at all, right? Like we're not preparing anything on these topics. We're just sort of getting the lay of the land and seeing what it all looks like, all like 5 pages of topic ideas. It's great. I'm very excited. Another thing you can email us for is that you can get on the list to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. All you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. It's a perfect program, so perfect in fact that you may end up accidentally borrowing my copy of Untitled Goose Game. And then you play that for as long as you want, and then you send it back. It really, it's the perfect program. And then one last thing I just wanted to plug here. Mark, as you know, and maybe as our listeners know, I a while back hosted a podcast about the band Weezer. with previous guest on the show, Jen Kleinrock. And the podcast has been defunct for many years now. But Weezer just put out a new album, so we recorded a new episode of the
Awesome.
Weezer podcast. My name is Weezer, about the album OK Human. If you are trying to wrap your head around that nonsense, you can check out our episode of My Name is Weezer. It is available on all podcast things right now.
Has it really been defunct for years? Did you guys record like a special episode not that long ago for like their cover album?
The last time we recorded was 2019. And
Oh, wow.
we had done like 3 or 4 episodes in 2019, right around the time that Jen left LA. She lives in Atlanta now. So it was like around the cover album and the Black album and just like a handful of other things. But yeah, the podcast has been dark for about 2 years.
Wow.
And it had been dark for a while before that.
I'm so curious to know what you think about OK Human, but I will check out the podcast, I guess. Then we'll talk about it afterwards.
All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing.
So I continue to play Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Sharp FE, and I unfortunately don't really have anything new to say about it. I'm just kind of like 10 or 15 hours into this JRPG that I am really enjoying. I don't know if the game is going to like change much. I feel like I'm early in a game for like a JRPG, so
Yeah.
I kind of keep waiting for the other shoe to drop and for like a brand new system to open up or something to change dramatically. And I don't know that that's the case, which I'm totally fine with. I just kind of keep like anticipating it happening.
That is always a wild thing when you're playing and it happens in JRPGs all the time. When you're playing it for like 20 hours and then you're like, "Oh, they're introducing a new system."
Yeah,
to me
it's
now.
like, oh, this is like kind of the 20 hours I was playing turned out to be the prologue.
Yeah. Now I'm getting to the real game. Well, Mark, I feel like I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments that you just did. Of I don't really know that I have a whole lot to say. I'm a little bit stuck in a video game rut at the moment. I continue to play Ring Fit Adventure, Hades, and Animal Crossing: New Horizons. And I feel like I've gone back into all. No, Ring Fit has been a constant. But I feel like I'm like back in on Animal Crossing and on Hades. It'd been a couple weeks of not really doing Hades, and then just over the weekend, I don't know, like I got it in my head. I was like, oh, you know what? I should get back to Hades. It's always fun, and that remains true. It is still always fun. I finished a run in less than 20 minutes the other day. Felt really good about that. And yeah, I mean, every time I play, I'm like, wow, this is a cool new build. I wish I could always play like this. And then you start over, and then you start another build, and you're like, wow, this one's great too. So that's, remains a wonderful game. I'm enjoying all of the new content in Animal Crossing around the festival, which is their carnival, their Mardi Gras, basically. So like the event itself hasn't happened, won't happen until I think the 15th. But just getting a lot of blue and purple, like confetti outfits and just cool dumb stuff like that. There's a new set of reactions that are all festival related. So there's one called Viva, which like you kind of pose and there's like a sunbeam that appears above your head. But my favorite is one called Feelin' It. And when you do Feelin' It, you kind of like tap your feet rhythmically and like pump your hands, and like every now and then their face changes from like kind of like squinting and concentrating to like open mouth and like yeah.
I like that.
And it's amazing. And sometimes you can get your animal neighbors to do it with you. It's just lovely. I'm very much looking forward to the festival itself.
It's interesting because I feel like as much as I'm enjoying Tokyo Mirage sessions, wow, that's going to be rough.
It's tough. Here's the thing. I know you messed it up twice, but like Tokyo, fine. Easy consonant clusters, not difficult. Mirage is tough, right? The j is something. And then sessions, so j, and then sharp. So it goes j, it's very difficult.
I'm gonna have to start performing this show with like a wine cork in my mouth. for the enunciation of everything. So
Yes.
as much as I am enjoying Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, and I
Yeah.
am, but like I feel what you're saying about like being in like a little bit of a video game rut. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is that like I I feel like I don't really at this moment have anything video game related to look forward to like later in the year, like down the line.
Yeah.
And I guess we were kind of in the same boat with Nintendo last year. Like we didn't really get like a look at what was coming this year or last year, but for whatever reason I feel like I feel it harder this year.
Yeah, well, and I mean, last year at this time we still had Animal Crossing on the
Mhm.
horizon. We were not in lockdown at this time last year, so it's just the last 10 months have taken a psychological toll on all of us. But yeah, like I get what you mean. I'm excited. We will talk about it when we get to what's coming out next week. I'm very excited about Super Mario 3D World. But that is a game that I have played. I've 100%ed twice and will again. I'm very I'm very excited to play it again, but it's not going to be a new experience for me. And then like not going to play I'm not going to play Monster Hunter. I'm not going to play Bravely Default 2. um I guess I'll play Pokemon Snap. Maybe I'll play Pokemon Snap. Right now I'm very much feeling like, oh yeah, I don't there isn't a video game thing out there that I'm like super hyped about. And
Yeah,
part of
that I'm
that is
like
I feel like I just don't know what's coming.
totally, totally. Yeah, I guess it makes me appreciate like how much like the anticipation is something that I like is part of like the fun
Yep.
of video games for me.
Yeah, well, I mean it's part of what makes talking about them uh possible, first of all. um so I and a lot of my enjoyment of Nintendo stuff comes from doing the show with you and talking about it and sort of theorizing about it and understanding it. Um and we do a lot of we don't I was about to say we don't do a lot of speculation, but we do a ton of speculation. But mostly like we look forward and we look back. But like the forward part is all question marks at this point.
Yeah, yeah, it just feels kind of like a weird time.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So on tomorrow, Wednesday, February 10th, the Outer Worlds, the Obsidian RPG that was released for Switch over the summer, the DLC Peril on Gorgon, which was released on other platforms last year, is being released for Switch. It's $15 or $14.99, or you can get like an expansion pass that includes this and presumably something in the future for $24.99. Um, Also, on the Switch eShop is available the Outer Worlds board approved bundle, which includes the main game and presumably all this DLC for $80. I'm excited for this. I liked the Outer Worlds on Switch. I enjoyed my time with it. For $15, I'm excited to have like a few more hours to put into it. It's been so long since I've played it. I think I played it when it first came out,
Yeah.
so it was like towards the end of the summer, if I'm remembering right. And I wonder what it'll be like jumping back in. Like when I did that with the Breath of the Wild for the Champions Ballad, it took me a while to like even just get used to holding like the
Yeah.
controls again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Breath of the Wild with that jump button as the top button. No other game is like that. Come on, Breath of the Wild.
And then on February 11th, Thursday, Little Nightmares 2 is released. And then on Friday, of course, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is released, as well as the Nintendo Switch Mario Red and Blue Edition and the Cat Mario and Cat Peach amiibo.
Which, as we were alluding to before, is a game that we are both very interested in and excited about. I've been getting myself like pumped up by listening to the Super Mario 3D World end credits music, which is just the title is just credits roll, and it is this awesome big band arrangement of like all the game's major themes, and like God, the music in the game is so good, and I'm so ready to immerse myself in it. And then there's this whole new Bowser's Fury thing in there, and I can't really wrap my head around how I'm going to approach it. Have you given any thought to which of these two experiences you're going to tackle first?
Man, I think I'm gonna do 3D World just because I'm not as familiar with it. But my struggle with figuring out how I'm gonna play 3D World is like I want to play online with you. I want to play online with
Yeah,
friend of the show June. Theoretically, like all of us can play together.
you
I'm
bet
just
we can.
really nervous about the quality of the online because I think like I will play it by myself. And sorry, that's the other part that I'm not sure of, where it's like, I guess maybe I have like one save file where like I'm just playing through it, another save file that I potentially use for online, or maybe I'm using somebody else's save file for online. Like I don't really know. I don't know the best way to approach that part of it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I know Sarah and I will end up playing probably all the way through it to get like there will be a dedicated file to just like the two of us running around. Um, and then we'll probably have like a second one going that like you're dropping in on or whoever. Um, because I mean the game is good enough to play twice back to back. Like it really is. Especially if you're less like obsessed with getting everything the second time or the first time, whatever. Um, yeah, but I'm really like Sarah and I had a conversation about this. And she was like, "Okay, so who of us is gonna play Bowser's Fury first? Like who gets it first?" And like we don't know. We're coming up on it. It comes out on Friday. We do not have a solution.
Well, technically, you guys can play it in co-op, right? Although
Yeah,
I know
but
being Bowser Jr. is not going to be the same experience.
yeah, neither of us want that. We want to play as that kitty Mario. Come on, he's a cat.
Are you getting the Cat Mario or Cat Peach amiibo?
I don't have. I have not yet made a plan to get them. Um, but seeing them on our list of new releases just now made me think maybe I should. Because they're good looking amiibos. They're good looking amiibos,
They're
Mark.
really
And
cute.
I've got a Bowser amiibo and I've got a Bowser Jr. amiibo. So like those are the other ones that are compatible with the game. I feel like I may need to complete the set. I don't know. I don't know. Should I do it? Should I get them?
Well, it may be out of your hands. I don't even know if they're going to be available.
Oh, that's a great point. I mean, I don't know. I feel like amiibo scarcity has kind of gone down a little bit.
Mm.
Like I don't know if the collector market is as rabid for them anymore, especially when Nintendo just sort of like reissuing amiibo at random. Um, they are. We talked about it last week, but they are reissuing the Bowser and Bowser Jr. amiibos from Super Smash Brothers to coincide with the release of this game, and they just sort of do that periodically, where it's like, you can find a Marth again. He's out there, and in the year of like the I guess maybe the first like 2 or 3 years of amiibo releases, they were very pointedly not doing that, and now they just are, and I feel like it's maybe also a function of like people don't go into stores anymore and just like clear them off the shelves. I don't really know what to attribute it to, but I think they're easier to get now than they used to be.
Ooh, actually, you mentioning Marth. This is something that did not end up in the show notes, but I remember reading it over the past week, and it tickled me. Is that so? Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile game, they have like polls, like user polls, to be like, who's the next character that we should add to the game? And in the most recent poll, the two like Marth was an option, but so was the guard from the oh man, I'm blanking on the monastery's name in Fire Emblem Three
Garrick
Houses.
Mach
Yeah, the
Monastery.
Garrick
Yeah.
Mach Monastery, just like one of the nameless guards who's at like the front door that you can talk to.
Yeah.
And Marth ended up losing to Nameless Guard at the front of
Wow.
Garrick Mach Monastery because I didn't know this, but apparently he's like a meme because he's just like so polite and nice, like everybody likes him.
That's great, and I like that. I mean, it makes sense because there is no Marth in Fire Emblem Three Houses, right? Like, it makes me sort of glad that there are people who like are Fire Emblem fans because of Fire Emblem and not because of Smash. You know what I mean? That feels good. All right, so those are the new releases. Let's close this out. Now it is time for a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers did not play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Today, we are talking about elementary school assemblies that we experienced. And I think we can also broaden this to like junior high, middle school. I feel like the only thing that's like actually out of bounds here would be like a high school pep rally. Which, first of all, I just want to call those out as bad. Those are bad. I don't like them. I hated being like, I would at that point rather be in class than like go into the auditorium and like cheering on the football. Like, what is that?
I don't know. I always liked not having class. Like that part was fine.
I'd rather stay in the classroom, frankly.
I,
But what was there an assembly in particular that sparked this question for you?
no, well, I just remember like people coming to our elementary school, and I don't have specific memories of like the shows that they would put on. They would put on shows, or they'd be like BMX bikers, and or
Right.
magicians or something like that. I remember as a kid thinking like, one, wow, that's like amazing and so cool, and two, like what a fun like job. But then as an adult looking back on it, I'm so curious about the logistics of being somebody who like performs elementary school assemblies.
So I have a friend that did that with a company in the Midwest, like based out of Minneapolis, that they had like a show about like like power line safety. It was like
Yeah.
electrical safety. And so she and the like other person who was in the show, is just like the two of them would like tour around in a van sent to different like schools and like museums and stuff.
Yeah.
And like put on the show, and like they had costumes and sets and all, like they just had to execute it all on their own. And then like it's so funny because they're talking to children about like safety, and then they're just in some tiny town in the middle of Minnesota with nothing to do for 2 days. So like they get drunk and like do drugs and stuff, and like
That's what
like it's just, yeah, they're just actors, man.
I know. That's what. So like, in your friend's experience, like, were they? I assume they weren't like traveling the country, but were they like when they were staying for 2 days, were they just like living out of the van?
No, they got him a hotel room. Like
Oh.
they were put up in whatever places. This recording of 433 is annoying. I'm sorry if you're hearing sounds coming through there. Yeah, no, they would be put up in a hotel. But then it was like on them to drive to the next city.
Yeah.
The next day or whatever.
How big was their territory? Like, did they have
Pretty
like?
big.
Yeah.
Like a couple states. I mean, like Midwest states too, not East Coast states, but also not West Coast states. So it's kind of in the middle. Yeah, I was trying to think about experiences that I had, or assemblies that I saw as a kid. And I know that there were, like someone like doing like tricks with devil sticks, or
Right.
something dumb like that. But the one that I remember most was our music teacher in elementary school. Maybe she was only there for like a year, or maybe even only a couple weeks or something. But at the end of the time that she was teaching, she like gave a concert that we all went to in in the auditorium. Not it's not even an auditorium, it's a gymnasium, and we're all sitting on the floor. And she someone played, and she sang part of Your World from the Little Mermaid. And I remember everyone being like, wow, she's the best, she's so good. But like she's just like some music teachers singing songs from Little Mermaid.
But isn't that the dream though? Like, because you have such like a captive like audience who thinks you're so cool. Like, I totally get the appeal of performing for a bunch of elementary school kids. It's like the dream of everybody who at a party will pull out their acoustic guitar and make you listen to them play. Like, that is like what they grow up to be. That music teacher who forces an entire elementary school to listen to them sing Part of Your World.
Yeah. Not to get too inside improv-y, but didn't your Herald team go to like perform for like a college improv
Yeah,
class at
we
one
did.
point? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. That is definitely true. That's definitely a thing that happened. And that's like exactly how I felt. I'm sure I felt like that band
You
teacher.
felt like a god. Yeah. Yeah, you guys did one callback and the room exploded, I'm sure. There's no applause at the end of this recording of 433, so that's the end of it. We were accompanied today by the Lord of the Lost ensemble. First time that we are featuring that recording, and probably the last because there's no applause to indicate when it's over. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
So last year, when the Entertainment Software Association announced the cancellation of E3 for 2020, they promised that the event would be back in 2021. And while the ESA was originally planning for E3 2021 to be an in-person event like it usually is at the Los Angeles Convention Center, as of and also right this moment as we're recording this, they have not officially canceled the in-person convention, but apparently they're now working to turn it into a digital event instead because it isn't looking likely that like a in-person convention of this type is going to be able to happen, especially in LA this summer.
Yeah, I mean, we are a world epicenter of the disease at the moment. Our numbers are better, but still, worse than any point during the summer. So, yeah, it seems like probably a good call. I'm kind of I understand why they weren't able to pivot to like a digital event at the time, especially because in the absence of an E3, people were just like, forget it, we're just doing our own
Yeah.
thing, and like every publisher started doing, like Ubisoft had their own like run of things. Like everyone was just like, we have our own pipeline, and several other outlets started to offer their own alternatives to what E3 was. It seems weird to me that they're like announcing now that they're starting to work on like a digital, like, guys, have been working on this for a long time, please.
Well, my guess is that's actually probably what happened, right? Is that they have been
Mm,
like working on it for a while, and maybe they've started like reaching out to different people, and that's how it leaked, or that's how like VGC or these
sure.
other sites like got a hold of it. Um, but I think you bring up like a really great point. Well, first let me run down like what VGC
Yeah,
says
yeah, good
that
call.
the digital event is going to include. It will probably sound really familiar. It's 3 days of live stream coverage held between June 15th and June 17th, multiple 2-hour keynote sessions from game partners, an award show, a June 14th preview night, and other small streams from game publishers, influencers, and media partners. Media previews would be released the week before. It would supposedly include demos on consumer platforms, but like, who knows if that would include Switch? Because we saw something similar this summer from some of the other digital events, and
Right.
they were mostly just Xbox and PlayStation focused. And then the typical show day allegedly would see its live broadcast schedule from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. But I think you bring up a really good point, Patrick. Like all of those things, it's like, uh, why do you need the ESA? Why would you need E3 to do any of this? Right? Like if you're a big
Yeah.
publisher, like if you're a Nintendo, if you're a Microsoft, if you're a Sony, if you're a Bethesda, I guess that could soon be part of Microsoft. But if you're any of those big publishers, like why you have a big enough audience that like you don't need E3, you don't need the ESA for any of this. If you want to do a digital thing, you can just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no way to like, play back the tape and like, roll back this year's summer uh announcements, but like, it turned what was like a weekend and sort of like the week leading up to it, or I guess it's really just a week, right? Um uh of game announcements into months and months of and there was a point where like you and I were talking about it, like, I mean, are we still in this or is it just news? Like,
Totally.
um so like I do think that there is something to the sort of like unite the clans aspect of it, of like we're all getting all of our announcements out, and like, there are some smaller titles and even like pretty big announcements that get sort of swallowed up by everything else, but on the whole, it's a high tide raises all boats, right? Like all eyes are on the gaming industry during the week of E3, and so like it's hard to say like which is more beneficial to individual publishers and developers, but I don't even know if the ESA, having like seeded that ground last year and having that not even data leak the year before, but like the issue of just having people's contact information just up on a easily accessible website of attendees, right? Um, I don't know if they hold that sway over the video game industry anymore, right? Like we're gonna mention Jeff Keighley in a second here, but like he used to work on them or work with them on their like sort of live show stuff. And like I am 8-bit was working with them last year to like kind of get the stage show down and get like the experience into a place that like people wanted it to be. But like they bailed, and that was before it was clear that coronavirus was going to cancel. And ditto Jeff Keighley. So it's kind of like I don't know that they had the clout. I just don't know that they have the clout too. If Unite the Clans is what is necessary for E3 to work, I don't think the ESA has that ability anymore.
Yeah, and when E3 was like a physical thing, um, big publishers were already like not attending or not having
Yeah,
big
great point.
presentations, and or they would, or they wouldn't be official participants of E3. So what would you would go to E3 at the LA Convention Center, and right next door would be Microsoft stuff, but that was all
Yep.
happening at LA Live, and like was not technically part of E3, even though you had to have E3 credentials to like get like like all that kind of stuff. Same
Yeah.
with like EA Play, or I can't remember exactly what they called it, but that was like another big EA had their big event, but it was like the weekend before E3, and it wasn't
Yeah, that's right.
officially part of E3, but they were taking advantage of the fact that all of the journalists and everybody would be in town for E3. But I think you're
And Sony just wasn't even there in
yeah,
2019.
right.
Um and like Nintendo did have a presence and like would probably continue to. It's not like they do a press conference from there either. Like they just do their straight to video directs.
Yeah, so we had seen like the prominence of E3 become less and less like magnificent,
Yeah.
for the past few years. But at the same token, like the ESA theoretically is the lobbying organization for the video game industry. And so presumably like Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, like all of those big companies have an interest in the success of the ESA. And I do wonder if that's like what has kept Nintendo like part of it of and all that kind of stuff, because it's just like, yeah, like we need the organization, or we need an organization, and this is the one that we
Yeah.
have now to like lobby on behalf of our interests. And so I think you're right that like their interest in like participating in the digital show would be more to protect like video games than it would be for their personal benefit, because and I feel like this maybe like smaller developers, would they see more benefit out of it? I'm not even sure if that's true. Like I'm not even sure if like
Yeah,
people care at
I
that
don't know
point.
either. Yeah, I mean it's so strange because like it obviously the relationship with the ESA is obviously beneficial. If for no other reason than they can manage what's happening at the LA Convention Center, which is if you've ever been to E3, it is huge, right? Like there is as you mentioned, like LA Live is also, and like all the space between them is just taken over by everything. And while the ESA isn't managing everything that's happening not on the show floor, putting on a convention is no small feat, right? And understanding like the power and internet needs of a million video game companies is maybe something that they are uniquely capable of addressing. Um, but yeah, in a world that's going to be mostly digital events, I don't know. Do you think there's any chance that they do like a digital and a physical thing with like fewer people in attendance, no more fans, no more Patrick and Mark get in easy by by submitting our show as our credentials?
Yeah, I wonder because like I've never gone to E3 as like a deal maker, right? I've never
Yeah,
gone, and so I have no idea if that like is still a valuable part of what E3 is. But I don't know. I just wonder if it even makes sense anymore. Like, do you need it?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it seems like no, right? Even in terms of the like a space for a big announcement palooza. Um, like we've seen Nintendo move away from that, right? Like it's been well over a year since the last time we had a full blown Nintendo Direct. And per one of your 2021 predictions, you don't think that they're going to
That's
go
right.
back to that.
Well, I also think that video games have become such a big business with such big players that like I don't know that you need an E3 in the same way that you did in like the year 2000, right? Like when Sony does a state of play for uh smaller than that, when Walmart is going to have PlayStation 5s available to buy,
Yeah.
like it's getting write
It's
ups.
national news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's national news. So, like so I like these companies, the industry has grown so big that it doesn't, yeah, it just feels like E3 is such like a quaint relic of the time. And like uh the past few years we've also seen, in addition to like big players drop out, we've seen them try to like turn it kind of into like a fan convention, but it's been like an unhappy marriage where they're like there's not enough people there who are like into the cosplay aspect of it to make that
Yeah.
feel completely natural. And so it just it feels like a convention that exists because it always existed and not one that like still really has purpose.
Yeah. Well, and like, to your point about it sort of gradually becoming a fan event, um, that market's kind of covered. Like there's PAX already, and then there's all the Comic Cons, and C2E2, at San Diego Comic Con, WonderCon, New York Comic Con, like everything. And while those all those Comic Cons are not game focused, the game companies show up at those
Mm-hmm.
places. And so it is kind of like, I don't like I don't it really does feel like, is this necessary anymore? And that's a question that we've been sort of softly posing for years. But after a year that 2020 demonstrated that no, it is not necessary. Uh, maybe maybe that just carries through forever.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, as a fan, and you talked about this earlier, as a fan, if E3, or at least like an equivalent event where it's just like 1 or 2 weeks where it's just all
Oh
news,
yeah,
like all announcements all the time, like that is like so much fun. It's something to look forward to. And we definitely missed it in 2020. Like, Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest was something that came about to kind of like replace E3, and it's coming back for 2021. Um, the Indie Live Expo, they did two of those last year. There's the next one is on June 5th at 6 p.m. Japan time, so I guess June 4th for us. So it's like a bunch of like other things sprung up in its place, but it just wasn't the same. It's like Summer Games Fest was, I couldn't even tell you anything that came out of it because it was just news. Like you
right.
would get
Yeah,
an
it
announcement
was
like
too
every three
broad.
weeks or
Yeah,
something.
that's
Yeah.
right. And just from all corners of video gamedom. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just sort of, and especially well, the production pipeline is in the shape that it's in. We talked about like last year being um like theoretically a slower year for game releases due to COVID-19, but like, we're going to start to see like the actual delays from like games getting greenlit or like early stages of stuff being worked on. We're going to see that reverberate throughout 2021 and
Yeah.
2022. Things that won't even look like delays because won't even know that the games have existed in whatever form they're in. Like, people are not back to working in person, especially on something like video games, which can sort of be done remotely. Um, but so yeah, I mean, I think until that pipeline gets like kind of sped up or cleared up, development is going to continue to be slow, and there just won't be huge slates of things to announce, which make it then harder to have events where you announce a bunch of things.
And there were times last year where even though we didn't have E3, and maybe because we didn't have E3, like it was exciting because like every week Nintendo was dropping some like crazy thing
Yeah,
that like like we weren't anticipating at all. And then it was like, what? Like, but we just had a big announcement last week. How are we having one this week? And so I think there were still like fun moments that maybe all that stuff would have been bundled up at E3, and so we wouldn't have had those announcements in October or November. But I guess like without E3 last year felt kind of like, like instead of having Christmas, your parents were like, "Well, we're just going to give you one present every month for a year." And then you're
yeah.
like, "Well, I guess it like at the end it was
I
the
guess that's
equivalent, but it
cool.
just
Yeah.
wasn't as fun."
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing, right? Like we like the pomp and circumstance. There are few episodes of this show that I think are as easy to do or as fun to do as the E3 Nintendo Direct like reaction thing where we just go blow by blow through all the announcements. That's fun. I like doing it. We don't have to prepare other than watching a thing that we were going to watch already. I mean it's just fun and cool.
Yeah.
And I miss that when it's gone. Um and if Nintendo can, one of the things that's just nice being a Nintendo fan is that then when the direct is happening, right? Whereas now there could be a direct tomorrow, right?
Right. It could be
And we
happening
wouldn't
as we
know.
speak.
That's right. As we speak in your headphones right now, it could be happening.
On March 1st, the streaming service Crackle will premiere a 5-part documentary called Playing with Power, the Nintendo Story, that promises to recount the history of Nintendo. According to Deadline.com, it features interviews with Will Wheaton, Allison Haslip, yeah, totally, Nintendo of America co-founder Ron Judy, Atari co-founder Nolan Bushnell, former Sega of America CEO Tom Kalinske, former Nintendo CEO Reggie Fils-Aimé, and head of Xbox Phil Spencer. It's written and directed by Jeremy Sneed and executive produced and narrated by Samwise Gamgee, Sean Astin.
Aston, right?
Astin, of course,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, kind of cool. Did you end up watching that documentary series that was on Netflix that now
No,
I
I
can't
heard it
remember the
wasn't
name
that
of?
good.
No, it's fine. It's
Oh,
fun.
okay.
Um, I mean, no, I mean, you're right that it is not that good, but it is it is entertaining and fun to get like stories sort of behind the scenes of some of these games. Some stories that some that you don't. There's a lot of Nolan Bushnell in that one too. So I think it's just interesting that he's ready to relive his glory days, talking about like Atari and Chuck E. Cheese and stuff.
I,
Do you think is this something that you're gonna check out
I don't
or?
know. I am skeptical of its quality because it's premiering on Crackle.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't.
Crackle is mostly anime, right?
I have genuinely. I do not know. I don't know that I've ever watched anything on Crackle.
Yeah, I know that I have not.
So it could be. I don't know what it offers. Apparently, it offers 5-part video game documentaries. Maybe we'll have to check this out if for nothing else to figure out what Crackle is. Did you know that Crackle used to be owned by Sony, but now it is owned by the Chicken Soup for the Soul like entertainment company or whatever?
Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. I mean, I like that they got Reggie. Like that's interesting. I'll listen to that guy talk.
Look. I'd love Reggie. He. It seems like he's like everywhere now. Like he like left. He left Nintendo and he's like GameStop. Yeah, like I'll collect that. I'll be on their board. Sure, collect that paycheck. Like So I love Reggie. It'll be fun to see him in this if I watch it. But it doesn't feel like that much of a coup.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. That he's handed out a lot of yeses. Is that what you're saying?
I say maybe we should take our shot. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, let's do it.
Back in 2015, there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that Nintendo and Netflix were teaming up for a live-action series based on The Legend of Zelda. Nothing ever came of that report, and apparently it's because Nintendo canceled the project after it was leaked to the Wall Street Journal. We know this, or think this, because comedian Adam Conover shared this anecdote on the Surf Times podcast. He said, quote, I worked at College Humor, and we had a secret project where we were going to make a claymation version of Star Fox with Nintendo. I know this because Shigeru Miyamoto came to our office, and I remember that because I asked my boss if I could be in the office that day because it was the weekend, because I just wanted to watch Shigeru Miyamoto walk by. Sidebar, yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, definitely. Get there. It doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter why you would or would not be there. Be there.
Yep. Back to what Adam was saying. He told me no, and I'm still mad at him. Then, a month later, suddenly there were reports Netflix wasn't going to do its Legend of Zelda anymore. I was like, what happened? And then I heard from my boss, we weren't doing our Star Fox anymore. I was like, what happened? He was like, someone at Netflix leaked the Legend of Zelda thing. They weren't supposed to talk about it. Nintendo freaked out, and they pulled the plug on everything, the entire program, to adapt these things.
interesting, not corroborated by anyone other than Mr. Adam Ruins Everything, Adam Conover. Um, I have no reason to suspect that he's lying here, but it also doesn't totally sound like he's got the full picture,
Oh, for
right?
sure, for sure.
I mean, if they were doing a a claymation Star Fox thing at College Humor, that means that they were doing like a 2-minute video, right? Um, maybe a small series of them, but like it wasn't going to be a big full blown thing. It sort of seems weird to me that Shigeru Miyamoto would have gone to College Humor, right? Like that feels weird to me.
Yeah, I do wonder if they were going for some like robot chicken type thing. I like this idea. I like this idea of like a
Mm-hmm.
stop motion animated Star Fox thing. You know, in my mind just thinking of the Super Nintendo box art
Yes.
where they have those little marionettes. I also like I totally believe that as part of the IP expansion that Nintendo has been undergoing where they are looking and for partners to help like expand the reach of their IP, that they're like would absolutely be interested in something like this. Um but and I totally believe that like as soon as it leaked, Nintendo was like, "Nope, like this is dead, and you are dead to us, and we will not talk to you ever again."
Which means that other series could be in development at other development houses, at other production companies, and we won't know about it because Nintendo demonstrated that they're not afraid to walk.
Yeah, I do wonder how far along like the Legend of Zelda was, like if it was just like an agreement to hear pitches, you know, like
Yeah.
because I that feels like a daunting task to try to come up with a narrative like series based on the Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of glad that like Netflix didn't end up getting to take a swing at it.
Totally.
Just because I feel like the curve of like Netflix quality, especially if it's something like that where it's like it's the Legend of Zelda name, it doesn't have to be anything. It can
Yeah.
it can just exist and people will watch it. Um, there are obviously great things that come out of Netflix, but my default assumption is like this is going to be middling.
Totally, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, I would imagine that Nintendo would be heavily involved, and so hopefully it would be interesting if nothing else. But yeah, I'm just having I I just struggle to see like let I see it more as like an animated series. Like I just really struggle to see like
Yeah.
how you would be able to capture like the whimsy of it in I'm just kind of imagining like not that it's a bad movie, but like it coming across like the labyrinth or something.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like my reference point was going to be the last unicorn, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that there it's all and all of that still is like not quite right, right? Like I don't really want to see a human actor playing Link.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
that's
That's
just
like
wrong.
totally. And then you're like, okay, well, you know, is it going to be serious? Like, are you trying to go for a tone like, I mean, not like as extreme of Game of Thrones, but like something like that? And it's like that doesn't feel right either. Like that just feels like a tough nut to crack.
Yeah. So I mean, it's also possible that like Nintendo didn't like what they were seeing coming out of Netflix and pulled the plug there. And at the same time, we're like, and we're not gonna do the Star Fox thing either. Like there's so many layers here of
Totally.
like, Adam wasn't even allowed in the office the day that Shigeru Miyamoto was presumably there. So like, you know, um, maybe he didn't, maybe he wasn't fully clued in on everything. Plus, he's
That
so busy ruining everything.
that is a project that like of those two, it's like yes, like give me this like this Star Fox series.
Yes.
That sounds like a like Star Fox feels like something that could absolutely be a like Saturday morning cartoon type thing.
Yeah, you've already got characters that won't shut up. Like, put them in a cartoon.
Finally, speaking of things that Nintendo canceled, and that I feel like we will never get the full story on why, there was evidently a remaster of GoldenEye 007, the N64 game, a remaster of that developed for Xbox 360 that was canceled in the final stages of bug fixes.
This is crazy to me. This one is absolute. Like, I don't, especially considering there was a like, I was what did they call it? The GoldenEye game that came out on Wii
Yeah, by
just a
Activision.
couple years later. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember what, but yeah, it definitely felt like in this time period there was a lot going on with the GoldenEye license, or there were lots of ideas for it.
Yeah.
So developers Ross Burry and Mark Edmonds talked to Ars Technica about development and cancellation. They said that they were down to 90 bugs left to fix in QA testing when word came down from Nintendo that they were putting the kibosh on it. Burry says, quote, "When it was put to Nintendo, everyone there approved it, except they didn't check with the one guy who mattered. I believe I was told his response went along the lines of, quote, there is no way a Nintendo game is coming out on a Microsoft console," end quote.
And as with the Adam Conover stuff, like no one has verified that this is actually why Nintendo said anything, or I mean him saying that they ran it, everyone approved it except the one guy who mattered. Doesn't even name check the one guy who mattered. So like there's a lot of like fuzziness here. But it is crazy that they were like done with the game.
Yeah, that is totally crazy. Also, just more evidence that we got to get Reggie on this show so we can really put his feet to the fire about this GoldenEye 007 thing.
Yeah, he'd know all the details.
They said the development started in, quote, late 2006 or early 2007, and it doesn't look like there's any clarity on when exactly it was canceled. But a version of this remake leaked online earlier this month. Apparently, it's not the most recent version that they had in development, but I think you can see like basically a complete playthrough online.
Yeah, weird. I mean, it's a weird like alternate reality. And GoldenEye is such a like the original GoldenEye on Nintendo 64 is such a weird specific relic of its time. You know, running at like a truly abysmal frame rate. And you know, just looking like an early Nintendo 64 game, controlling like a shooter has never controlled before or since. And yeah, it's just I mean, just on top of it being like a relic of its time, as far as a game is concerned, it being like this in weird licensing limbo that it's, you know, part of like the Aeon company that makes the James Bond movies, that it was developed by Rare, a company owned by Nintendo at the time but is now owned by Microsoft. Like the providence and like who owns any version of these games, like it's just one of those things that's like locked away behind a weird vault, and making preservation or revisiting and remastering almost impossible. It's amazing they got this far into doing it.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder like just the business side of it. Like, how do you get the like whose likenesses do you use? Like, are you using?
Yeah.
I mean, not that the N64 characters really looked like anybody, but you had the like it was like a magic eye. Like you had the hint that was Sean Bean in there.
Yeah, well, and like, you know, they used a like digitized still of Pierce Brosnan, you know, for like the title splash. Like so you saw the actors a little bit. But yeah, by 2006, 2007, 2008, like are you using
Daniel Craig?
Or what are you doing?
I think that's what they did for the Activision Wii version, because Activision had the James Bond license at the time of like Quantum of Solace and all that.
Right. Well, and they were like, didn't they also have like missions from other James Bond games?
I think that's right. I never played it.
You know, they really should just. I mean, I know that the Hitman developer IO, right? I think that they are developing a new James Bond game. And like that'll be cool, and like I'm excited to see what they do. But like honestly, I wish that they would just like work out a solid like third party action stealth like gameplay system, and then just do you know, the best scenes from like all the James Bond movies.
That would be really
and
cool.
Also, let me pick which James Bond I want to control. If I want to be George Lazenby in Quantum of Solace, like let me.
That would be awesome. Oh, they should totally do that. Kind of like Smash Brothers Ultimate, but for like James Bond, where it's just like, give me the entire roster. Let me play whatever James Bond I want in whatever mission. Oh, that's such a good idea, Patrick. That's
It'd be so cool.
We're cursed to live in a universe where that'll never happen.
Where we have no power. Also, let there be a cheat code so I can play one of the missions as Austin Powers, please. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like this episode, you could share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. That would help us out a lot. Remember that on Thursday, we will not be talking about Nintendo at all. Mark, does this feel weird and dangerous to you?
We shouldn't dwell on it. We just have to, like, we're committed. We just got to do it.
Any last second suggestions for 433 topics, you can email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Or you can tweet at either I'm at Patrick_Ellers, Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nincart Society. We will take suggestions there as well. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers inviting Reggie Fils-Aimé onto this show to not talk about Nintendo. We should have him on Thursday. Saying thank you for listening.
My name is Will Hines, and I am a ghostwriter, meaning I write other people's books for them. And I have a podcast called I Will Write Your Book, which are recordings of my meetings with my eccentric clients, such as a woman blocked after one sentence of a children's book about her dogs, a romance novelist who dislikes sex, and a man proud of having sampled everything in his local grocery store. This podcast has been described as fully improvised, played by some of the best comedians on the planet Earth. Hey, that's pretty good. That's I Will Write Your Book on Campfire Media.
Campfire.